here's all. I was called out by manbearpig1122334455 to do a frequently asked beer questions video. It's a video started by Nitch, one of those chain letter video things that we used to do back in the day on YouTube, and so I got tagged by Josh, and here's my video. So first question is, what was your first beer? My first beer was a Coors Light. I was about 12, 13, and it was given to me by a certain family member who will remain anonymous, just in case. And it was just one sip, and I hated it, obviously, at that age, and didn't have any beer until maybe I was 16, 17, something like that. That was my first. Second question is, how did you get into beer geeking? Well, I kind of slowly worked into it. In my mid-20s, I started drinking Newcastle Brown Ale. Before that, I wasn't really a beer drinker. Wasn't much of a drinker at all, really. And then I had an Arrogant Bastard Ale from Stone, hence my channel name, Arrogant Bastard Ale, or Dan ABA. And that kind of got me started into exploring craft beer a little bit. I also drank a beer called Old Peculiar, which was available in Las Vegas back then, but kind of disappeared off the shelf for the past 10 years or so now. Of course, time for another one. Tried to clone that beer, which I had his clone. I was very honored to actually have that. But anyway, I digress. I just kind of slowly worked into it, and I met some coworkers who were into local craft beer, so I started getting into the local craft beer scene, and then I started getting into YouTube and home brewing, and the rest is history. What's your favorite beer? To be honest, that question is just too hard. I don't have a favorite beer. Is the honest answer, really. I have a bunch of favorite beers, and I appreciate, or at least try to appreciate, all styles of beer, including American light lagers all the way to Russian imperial stouts. So I don't really have a favorite beer, and that's that. If you could only have one beer, what would it be? I assume one beer for the rest of your life, or Desert Island beer, something like that. That's an easy one. Cantillon Goose, because it's low in ABV, it's sessionable, you can drink it. It's very, very complex. It's very drinkable, yet very complex. And those are two things that you can't really get in most beers. Cantillon Goose is one of the few beers that does both of those things extremely well. So that would be my Desert Island beer. Now we get into the more interesting questions, I think. How can you drink so much and stay healthy? That's not an easy thing. Right now, I think I'm pretty healthy. I did go through a phase where I was gaining, a little more weight, wasn't exercising. Went to my doctor, and he told me stop drinking beer. He said you could, in so many words, he tried to put it very carefully. He said that you could drink spirits or wine, but don't drink beer. And I told him, well, I'm a home brewer, and it's a big part of my life, so that's not going to happen. And so what I did is I changed my eating habits, and I started exercising a little bit. Nothing, crazy, just some cardio and a little bit of push-ups and sit-ups. And I'm not a big gym person, so and I cut out a lot of the fried food, a lot of the fattier, bigger carb, foods, sweets and desserts and stuff like that. And so now my blood work is pretty good now. So just trying to stay on that track for the last couple years. Are you an alcoholic? I don't think I'm an alcoholic. Now this is a sensitive issue for me because I have a lot of family members who are alcoholics, and it can be genetic. And it's on both sides of the family for me, and it's had a big impact on a lot of them. Now, when you look at the definitions of alcoholism, there's a lot of different kinds of definitions. There's a lot of different categories depending on who you look at. WebMD has a couple of good articles online you can look at. They define an alcoholic basically as anybody who is dependent physically or emotionally on alcohol, and I know I'm not dependent on it, so that's good. They have categories of alcoholics, like if you drink more than five drinks or more a day, then you're a functional alcoholic, or you have binge drinkers, and I don't do any of that. So I have maybe 1 beer, 2 beers a day, a little bit more on the weekend. I don't like getting drunk. I really don't like hangovers, so I don't do that as much as possible. I mean, it happens from time to time to everybody, especially for festivals or when you're going out of town for beer events and things like that. But in general, I try to be very moderate with my drinking, and I think that's a very important thing to do. You really have to moderate, especially if you're going to be a home brewer. What's your favorite ingredient? Well, I'm going to say yeast is my favorite ingredient. Without yeast, there would be no beer. There would be no alcohol. Yeast is one of those things that's not focused on a lot by homebrewers. But when you start to get into certain styles, you realize how important yeast is. And sometimes people kind of take advantage of yeast. I think a lot of homebrewers do. And a lot of beer drinkers, and generally just don't think about it. They think about hops, they think about malt, specialty malts and barrel, aging stuff, barrels, oak tannins and vanillins and things like that. People don't tend to think about yeast, not nearly enough. Do you brew? Yes, I brew. I'm a home brewer. Been homebrewing for almost 7 years now. Mostly brew just sour beers, although I've been delving into New England IPAs. Who in the beer world do you look up to? In the beer world, I look up to a lot of microbiologists that I've been able to kind of get in contact with through a Facebook group called Milk the Funk the last couple of years. Richard Price from Escarpment Labs, Brian from Sui Generis blog. He also has a YouTube channel. I highly recommend that. David Thornton from Carolina Barnhouse. It's a brewery in South Carolina. He also has a yeast lab called Southeast Labs. Lance Shaner from Omega Labs. There's definitely too many of these guys to mention. People with microbiology backgrounds who are applying it to beer either through their hobby or professionally, or trying to do it professionally. These guys are making breakthroughs with Brettanomyces and Lactobacillus, and just gathering data in a scientific manner that's helping to move beer forward, beer knowledge forward. Okay, so now it is tagging time. I get to tag 5 people. I'm going to go kind of international, almost international. Uncle Jonah, Dorf 68, he's my one non-international. Tube Dinos, Jake and Dar, and Gashlug. I'm tagging you guys to do a frequently asked beer questions. I'll put the questions in my description below. Cheers.